the truth is that it's all on you. You know it's all on you. You know you get to choose, yeah. So what you gonna do? Because it's all on you.
All right, everyone, welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners South Bay Edition. We get to talk about the bond in Redondo Beach today. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions, but we have some incredibly qualified individuals to bring on to chat with you about this subject that's just been burning a hole in your minds for a while. So without further ado, Miriam, go ahead and let them know what we got for them.
Hello, wonderful people out there. We invited our local leaders, a couple of our local leaders, to discuss today Measure FP, and that stands for Fire and Police. We have District 3 Councilperson Paige Kaluderovic and District 1 candidate for council, Brad Waller. And, Brad's awesome. He has been on the school board in the past. He's a local leader. He's been doing just tons of community service. And we really appreciate you being here today, Brad. And Paige, of course, you do so many great things for our city. We're so lucky we have you. So thank you both so much for being here today.
And Paige absolutely is serving as our mayor pro tem also. So, definitely want to get into what that's been like. But let's go ahead and dive right into FP. Paige, why don't you let us know the history behind FP and what it means for our city?
Yes, so Measure FP is a general bond obligation that would be a tax assessment on any property in Redondo Beach. It is for rebuilding our police and fire stations. We have identified 4 facilities, 2 of our fire stations, Fire Station 1 in South Redondo, Fire Station 2 in North Redondo, our police headquarters next to the Civic Center, as well as the police annex next to the auditorium at Redondo Union High School. The history behind this is that this has been needed for decades. It's kind of been, the can has been kicked down the road many times, and we just can't wait any longer. Our fire stations and police stations are not only unfit for the population that we're serving, but also they are not seismically up to standard. And just, we have been pouring money into maintaining them, but at this point, the Band-Aids aren't big enough that we can actually make a dent in it in a meaningful way. And we need to rebuild them because, as I mentioned before, our police and fire have outgrown them, and they outgrew them decades ago. So we really need to do this now. And it is a tax for residents, but this will be reflected in the property value increase on all of our properties in Redondo Beach. So as a person who bought their home in 2021, I intimately know how much this is going to cost. And my husband being a financial advisor, he's not a person who loves taxes. And I would say my biggest challenge was to convince him that this was a good idea, and he's on board now. So,
Brad, what are your thoughts on this bond measure, and why do you think that it has come to a point where we actually need to tax our homeowners? How did we get here?
Yeah, we got here because it's been a long time coming. When I first got elected to the school board almost 12 years ago, we had just passed our Measure Q bond, or we were in the process of passing it. And the city was looking and saying, it's like, geez, we just missed our opportunity. We, now that you guys passed a bond, we don't want to do it. And they should have waited 4 years and done it right then, because they keep on waiting. It's like, I talked to Bob Pinsler the other day, and he was saying when he was on the council, it was needed. So this is something that they have known about for a long time. I'm in the Leadership Redondo class, and we toured both the police station and fire station number 1. And you go to the basement of the police station, and they've got trash can after trash can, the big 35-gallon trash cans that overflow when it rains. And they were trying to show us the best part of the stations. So this is something that, has been a problem for a very long time. And it basically took until now for the council to, decide that it was a priority for them. I don't know if it was the negotiations with the fire department or what the exact pushing point was, but something forced them to say, hey, we have to do it. It would have been nice if they had done a multi-month study like the school board did to find out what the priorities were, what the projects were, but Paige can talk about why it went so fast if she wants to.
Yeah.
Really quick, before we go any further, I do want to congratulate Brad and everyone that has had something to do with our school board over the years. We just won like this amazing, prestigious award for being a wonderful school district and a great place to raise kids. That is one of the most important and impactful things I think to know about Redondo Beach. You've played a really big role in that, Brad. So before we get to Paige, talk a little bit more about how that bond will continue that legacy of Redondo being a place that's great to raise kids and raise a family.
Well, people want to live in a city that has good schools and is safe. And so it's the public safety combined with the schools. So I know we're talking about FP, but the Measure S bond is coming out as well. Having a desirable city means people want to move in and bring their kids. I've been a homeowner for over 30 years. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a letter from somebody saying, "What? My child wants to play baseball for Redondo and we can't get in. Are you thinking about selling your house?" So the fact that people are trying to move into our city because they want to be here, because our schools are so good, and because it's such a safe place to be. Our police and fire departments are tremendous. Generally, it's probably 1 to 2 minute response times, 3 to 4 at the outside if you're really at the edge. So, it's a great place to be, and people really want to be here. And we have to make sure that people continue to want to be here. Otherwise, they'll go to the other cities that are passing school bonds and doing other things with their infrastructure.
Yeah, and in case our viewers are wondering what award this was, so this was by Niche, and that's NICHE. Niche announced that RBUSD has been ranked #1 best school district in the Los Angeles area. And essentially, when I looked into, what are they looking at? How are they determining this? They had various factors, things like academic grade, teachers grade, culture and diversity grade, parent and student surveys on overall experience, resources, and facilities grade, which is, Measure S is going to be helping with that 100%. Clubs and activities grade, which my kids are in RBUSD schools, and I can tell you those clubs and those after-school activities and in-school activities are amazing. And then sports grade. And, it all ties in together because even, Beach City's health district is trying to pass their bond, and they provide a lot of services to the school. Like each school has a garden, and they have a garden docent, and they learn about the garden. They, I think they have 6 lessons each year for each grade, because I help out in the garden. I know this myself. And, just a lot of, there are so many things that Beach City's health district does too. So, it's interesting to see how everything is so intertwined, right? Our schools relate directly to our fire and police, relates directly to what Beach City's health district does with their nutrition programs and things of that nature for our schools. And it all together makes a great community. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case people are wondering where did this #1 ranking come from. I think it's really cool.
Awesome. Now, we do know that government moves slow. So how in the world, Paige, did this move so swiftly?
Well, first, I also want to thank Brad, because we bought our house here because our schools are amazing. And I will say that we put offers on 13 houses. And I think this was the only one in Redondo Beach that we did. And I'm so happy that we landed here. And we were putting offers on homes that were $400,000 less than what we paid here. And I'm happy to pay for it because we have a great school district and I don't have to put my kids in private school. So thank you, Brad.
And Paige, we're so glad you got that house because that's where you're doing so much work. You're doing a lot of work and you've really improved North Redondo. So thank you.
So why did this happen so quickly? And I will push back on that because as we discussed at the beginning of this meeting, this has been discussed for councils upon councils. So it's not a new topic that has been going on in Redondo and at council and in City Hall. So while we could have done more studies, we did do a study that was polling residents about their appetite for a bond. And as you mentioned, there was hesitancy in the past that the city didn't want to put a bond on after the school district had passed one. We knew the school district was going to put a bond on this November ballot. And we also knew that more voters vote in November. And so we would have a higher likelihood of passing a bond in November. So we wanted to put it on in this November election. And so I will say that we didn't rush it. We've had residents who have talked about, we don't have design for these buildings. We don't have a plan. We do have a plan. We have identified 4 facilities that we will be upgrading, very specific. And that's actually how we got to that number. It's a very specific number. The bond is for $93,350,000. And we got to that from an outside consultant that gave us numbers about how much it's going to cost to rebuild those 3 facilities and remodel the 4th. So the 3 facilities that we'll be rebuilding are Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, the police headquarters, and we will be remodeling the police annex. And that consultant is very credible. And they also just did the Manhattan Beach Fire Station. So it's they have very relevant data about how much this is going to cost. In addition to that, the council added an extra 10% or 10% contingency on new build, in addition to the 20% that the consultant had already added. So we put in a buffer there so that we will have some cushion as to what is needed to actually accomplish these tasks. And I mean, I'm confident that we can pass this bond. We do have a bigger lift than the school district, I will say. And this is why it's important that we get the word out, because we have to pass this bond with 67%. 2/3 of the voters have to approve this in order for us to rebuild these stations. So I think most people I've talked to are excited about this, but some don't know about it. And so that's why I thank you for having me on your show, so that more people will understand that this is local dollars. Your local tax dollars will be invested in your local police department, local fire department. And the other question that I've had is, well, how do we know it's going to stay local? That's when you need to know who you're voting for, because the discussion to go to county can come up again with 3 council votes. So anyone you're going to elect, if that is important to you, know where they stand on keeping fire local.
Pat Healy says the city of Redondo Beach is not alone in having to build, rebuild, and upgrade their fire and police stations in California. You just mentioned, I think Manhattan Beach or Hermosa, and they've all had to do some work. Here's my question, elephant in the room, okay? How did we get to a place where we have to do a bond? Why, knowing decade over decade that we've needed these funds, has our city council not done more to bring in the revenue that we need to support the valuable resources that we have here in this city? Like, it's not unknown. My neighbor across the street was with the fire department for the longest time, and he just got through telling me his wife just said I think he retired almost 10 years ago. They needed these things before. So what was going on to where our city did not plan to make these upgrades?
That is a great question.
Come on, Paige. Come on.
And what I will say is, I think it's important to note, and I brought this up previously, that our sales tax in Redondo Beach has grown 6% over the last decade. Our neighboring cities, Hermosa Beach, 36%. Manhattan Beach, 60-something percent. And Torrance, like 140-something percent. Granted, they raised their tax rate, so that contributes to that. But the point is, we do not have businesses that want to move into Redondo Beach or stay in Redondo Beach. That is something that we need to fix. And I brought it up at council. I brought it up at our strategic plan, and it's a priority. And right now, our revenue, the biggest contributor to our revenue is property taxes. And if we don't want to rely on residents to pay for things like this, we need to pivot and focus on business. So why this has happened in the past with council direction, I won't speak to because I wasn't on council, but I will say that it is a focus of mine because we need, as I said before, we just need to focus on business, because I hope that the residents pass this, and I think that it will be a great investment for them in the long run with their property values, but we can't keep doing this. So we're going to have to, and we have other needs. There were other things that we considered when we were putting this bond together. We have public workstation facilities that were not included in this bond, but they are just as old and they are just as in need for these kinds of upgrades. So where's that money going to come from? We're going to have to figure it out.
Is that a conversation that has been had, and those that have been a part of keeping revenue out of Redondo have agreed that either their actions have contributed to this or they will at least reverse course? Like, where is the community's confidence that if we pass this bond, they're not going to get us in this situation again? Because as a resident, that's all I'm thinking. Well, if we give them this money this time, we pay again, what's going to keep them from continuing that same behavior so that we wind up having to pay again? Like, where's the communication at within your group of peoples?
So what I will say is, I will say that those are two different things. In that we are at a place where we have, in my mind, no choice but to pass this bond, because if we do not, it will cost us more in the long run. And I mentioned before that these facilities do not have the capacity for the staff and equipment that serves our community now. Just to make that point, I met a gentleman in District 3. He was sworn into Redondo Beach Police Department in 1952. He moved into our police station now with, I think he said, just under 40 staff members in RBPD. We have over 240 staff members in RBPD now. In same building, we have moved into the police annex. He retired in 1982, and they were already storing things offsite at that time. So they had already grown out of that 40 years ago. So we desperately need this. But what's to say that council doesn't change course when it comes to business? As I said, I see these as two different things. We need to do this now. And then I would say we need to hold accountable the city to make that investment into business. Figure out what are we doing that is preventing businesses from coming here and putting roots down. So the first step, I'll say, is to pass this bond and then start thinking about how our community is going to change. We're going to have people coming here for business. That may involve some traffic, but that involves money and investment in our community, and we should be welcoming that.
And another thing about, since you mentioned traffic, which is the big thing everybody always worries about, when somebody builds something, the environmental impact report will say you need to mitigate traffic at this, and that, and the developers have to pay for those mitigations, so we can actually have improvements to our traffic problems. If somebody wants to put something at the AES site and they say you need to fix these 10 intersections up and down PCH to make sure the traffic can flow better, it might actually flow better after the development than before the development, because they've done those things. They've had to put in right turn pockets. They've had to do all sorts of stuff. But the city has to negotiate properly with them, because at the Legato property, I believe that they ended up not making the developer put in the right turn pocket at PCH and PV Boulevard. So things that could be done.
I think that's a good point about, we should, I get the sense that our community has slammed the door on growth and development, which I find interesting. And I know, yes, I bought my home in 2021, but I have, as you know, invested a lot of my time in the community now. And I was able to meet the Ito family, where we've honored them and their significant contributions to Redondo Beach for over a century. And they talked about how that area over by Jefferson used to be pig farms. That was 100 years ago. We are talking about a general plan that would be for the next 20, 30, 40 years. That's 40% of that time. And that area where there's R1A homes, like very dense housing, think about the growth that has happened. To the idea that we are not going to grow anymore would be like shoving our head into the sand. We need to have a say in how we're going to grow and talk about it like it's a good thing and that we have control over it. But right now, there's a lot of fear around that. And I feel like
you said the community slammed the door on growth. Did they slam the door or did they give up? Because I'm feeling like we gave up. We're giving up.
I mean, that's an interesting perspective.
I think it's come to a point to where I'm fear of being hopeful because they keep letting us down. Well, I'm fearful of getting engaged because it is such a letdown and we are still where we were years ago.
Yeah.
Is the fear of a developer wanting to come into our community there because of the way we've treated them in the past? Developer has become an insult.
So here's my question really quick, and either one of you or both of you can ask. One of the things you said is we have got to decide we're going to, as a council, be pro-development. But what's the communication going to be like out to other developers now, because they have shunned Redondo so much? And word on the street is we don't trust them. So you can say all day long, like, okay, now we're ready. And what is the communication out to them now saying, you know what, we were wrong, my bad? Like, how does that work? And is that even a conversation that's been had yet?
I will say I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, but I will also say that I think actions speak louder than words. Mm-hmm. And we have a general plan that is being updated right now. And that action and what that says, I think, is the signal to where we want to go. So I hope that residents and the community feel like one thing that I am reminded of, that I think there's been missteps in the past about development. For example, when the downtown of Redondo was demoed and they put in condos, I think a lot of people have felt like that was a huge mistake. And that's where they're like, we're never doing it again. But when we talk about growth, it is smart growth. It's intentional growth. And if we're just saying no all the time, then the state's going to come in and take that away from us. And if we're proactive, then we get to decide how to do that. So that's where I see we have the ability to do that.
I think we have a good opportunity here at the mall. I know, we can go back and forth about what happened before COVID. It should have been built. People are blocking it, this X, Y, and Z. I think in general, at least I could speak for myself and I can speak about the people, friends and neighbors and things of that nature. We want the mall to be improved. I personally, I'm just say for me, I'm fine with putting 650 housing units there. I'd rather have that than warehouses or whatever else. Now we're going to have giant trucks coming through. It's much better to have a mixed use mall where there's some housing and there's, retail, open area. And I think that is going to be a big step for us in Redondo to start the improvement. But the thing is that I don't think that we as a city are all aligned with that. I see a lot of people, no, nothing at AES. No more over here and here. We don't want any housing in South Redondo. Dump it in North Redondo. And that creates a divide. And I think, I know there's this other measure RB. I will be voting no on that because why would I vote yes on that? That's just, that is my way of saying, no, we don't want all the dumping. We need to all lean in together and take on what we need to take on to improve the city. You can't just keep dumping in North Redondo and no, North Redondo is not going to take on everything that we need to take on. We really need to do this together as a city. So I think what we need is leaders that are aligned with that. And I think that as long as we have leaders in council and mayor and things of that nature that are not aligned with what's best for the whole city, we're going to keep hitting these roadblocks. So to Tanya's point, I wasn't sure if I was going to vote yes on FP. My whole thought was, why should I vote yes on that? It's not my problem. Why should I have to pay? Because our city's leadership has continued to put blocks on the growth of our city, saying, we have a really bad reputation with developers. People don't want to, open up their business here. The way we treat Beach City's health district. Kaiser Permanente had a rehab, had a physical therapy gym in Beach City's health district, but because Beach City's health district couldn't give them a long-term lease because they were unsure of their building and their future, Kaiser Permanente exited. And guess where they're moving the rehab department to? Out of Beach City's health district to Torrance. On Sky Park.
Who don't need the money.
And now we have Redondo Beach residents that cannot access physical therapy services in Redondo Beach. You got to go to Gardena, or you're going to have to go down to Torrance or Long Beach or Harbor City. And think about how many Kaiser Permanente, insurance holders we have in Redondo Beach. So I use this as a very clear example of how our city cannot work with people like giving Beach City's health district an unfair floor area ratio compared to everyone else. That's why they're asking for a bond. And that's why they're having to let go of, their businesses that are trying to open up their business in Beach City's health district, like Kaiser Permanente, for example. So I really think that we need to think about that in our next elections.
Absolutely.
I'll say this really quick. I just want to say this. I think it would do the bond a really big favor if the current people in leadership would come out and commit to getting revenue in the city, not just have the smart and pretty face step out and say it, because we believe you, Paige, because you're honest with us, and not have you commit to something that they can't have your back on. This is something that seriously needs collaboration and commitment to make it easy. If we know this is something we need, make it easy, y'all. Come out and say, this is what we're going to do to support your decision to support us. Now, the city, our residents have damn near begged to keep our fire department here. So it only makes sense for us to support this because we got what we asked for, what we begged for, what we voted for, what we have rallied for, what we have written in for. We got it. We had to do all that just to keep our local services. Like, how much more do you want from residents? Now you want their money. Okay, now you want their money. They got to beg, they got to plead, they got to show up, they got to write, they got to take off work. Make it easy for the people that live here to want to continue to live here, because we are in a time right now where even if we want to live here, you might look at it and be like, you know what? They asking for way too much. This is hard.
Well, okay, so much I want to say here. First, there's an election coming up in our city next March, and Brad will be on that ticket too. So if that's important to you about business and growth and what direction we're going financially in our city, make sure you know where your candidates stand. And I'm sure Brad can speak to that. The other thing I wanted to address with Miriam, what happens if this doesn't pass? We're going to continue to do the best we can with our facilities, but we're not going to be able to fix the capacity problem, which in my mind is the biggest problem we have. We can't build bigger stations. We're going to put in, like right now, we're dumping a few $1 million every year into our police and fire stations to put Band-Aids where we can. New windows here and there, new carpet, remodeling some dorm rooms and things like that. That's what we can do with our budget. But if we don't pass this bond, like I said, it's going to cost us more later. So it's important that we get this done now. And it's important that we, in the future, with our March elections, where we have a mayor, 3 council members up for election, that you know where they stand on what they're going to do for economic growth in our community, because we're at the point where that needs to be the number one thing. We have lots of areas of revitalization. We've had some council members have said that, well, the reason that we're struggling financially is because the RENA numbers from the state mandated housing that we have to provide is what is crippling our business, because we're converting commercial into residential. I'm going to call BS on that, because if you drive down PCH, Artesia, Aviation, the waterfront, there are vacancies. There are, on all of those corridors, and that's not residential. We have, we have whole buildings that are vacant on PCH. So we're doing something wrong with business, and we need to figure out what that is.
Pat asks, has the city of Redondo considered building prefab structures to help mitigate costs?
Prefab structures for police and fire? Was that the question?
I'm guessing so, yeah.
I can't say that we've discussed that. I don't think it's off the table. And there was one thing I wanted to circle back to before about design and a plan for these facilities. To have architectural drawings or an itemized hard cost for any of these things would cost millions of dollars in design. And the reason why the council doesn't have that is because we are not going to invest that kind of money, given our budget, if the voters aren't going to approve this. So the first step is to pass this bond, and the second step will be to issue bonds for the design of these buildings. And I want to point this out to residents. If you vote for this, it's not as if the next property tax bill you get, you have an increase, and we didn't discuss this. The amount of this bond is just under $18 per $100,000 assessed value. So if you have $1 million home, you're going to pay about $180 a year. At the top of this, if everything was issued at the same time, but that's not how these bonds work. So we'd probably break it up into 3 tranches. So let's just say, it'll be $6 for every $100,000 assessed value. So that's going to hit first, and we're going to complete those projects, and then we would issue the next set of bonds. So it would be staggered over time as we complete the projects. And that's the same with the school bond.
Yeah. And another thing to consider on the costs, because people look at that and they say, wow, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It really isn't if you look at it. If all 3 bonds pass, which makes nice even round numbers, it's about $50 per 100,000 of valuation. The average house in Redondo Beach is about $800,000. That means your tax bill goes up by $400. But okay, that means that average house was paying $8,000 a year, and it's going to go up by 5% to $8,400. It's not like your tax bill is growing exponentially. The city bond fully funded is about 2%, the school is about 3%, and Beach City's health is about 0.5% or whatever. So it's actually not that much. $35 a month for the average household isn't something that's insurmountable, especially when you consider that 10 years from now, your house is probably going to be worth another $100,000 or 2 or 3 or 4
or more. Yeah.
Yeah, because exactly. When these things improve, then our property values go up overall. So it is an investment. It's an investment. And so to answer your question, Paige, right? Listen, I was one of the people that went to council and I said, keep our local fire department local. We do not want to lose our fire department. We don't want to go to county. And the research that was done and presented at council showed that we are better off with the local fire department. And so we demanded, right, to keep our fire department under local control. We want to keep our police department local too, right? We want to keep everything local. So, it's a responsibility to maintain our local fire and police. It's our responsibility. So if we want to keep it local, it is something we're going to need to pay for. We have to maintain the buildings. We have to pay for the equipment. It's a reasonable requirement, I think, for having local police and fire, that we get to, have 100% of their care. They care for us here. And I think that is, there's no price on that. So I will be putting out my sign when I get it. To support Measure FP for sure, and Measure S, and also the Beach Cities Health District bond, because I think those are all great.
So Maggie says, as someone who participated in community engagement around several iterations of development in the harbor for years and years of community effort, I agree that many members of the community have given up. We won't make progress until current D1 and D2 and mayor are gone. They have been anti-business, anti-development, very short-sighted, and they use scare tactics, vilifying potential partners. I do believe that what she says is true. We do have one more really quick. So Karen, is it true we'd still be responsible for this big improvement expense even if the fire department had moved to the county? Paige?
Yes, So if we were to move to county, we are the landlords and we are responsible for the buildings. So if we were to have moved to county, the county would come in and say, okay, this is what we need for our facilities, make it happen. And that's our responsibility. We have to do that. And they would lease our firehouses for $1 a year, and that would be that. So if there was something on the inside, they maintain, but essentially the entire structures are ours, regardless if we go to county. So we would have to pay for it.
Is there anything going on right now in city council that could immediately start to improve our economic growth? Since we know that this has been an ongoing problem, have there been steps put in place to mitigate some of these negative issues that we're having with our economic growth?
So like I said, at our last strategic plan last month, I suggested we'll be approving the strategic plan next Tuesday, October 8th. I suggested having a task force that evaluates what is it that's preventing businesses from coming here? Is that conditional use permits? Is it parking? Is it, our zoning? What is it that is making, is it our taxes? I mean, I can't imagine it's our taxes because we're at 9.5, and many of the other cities are already going up. So the task force is the first thing. I did talk to our community development director, and actually he mentioned the conditional use permits, that it seems like the ones that we're requiring it from almost every type of business. And we just kind of put them through the ringer in order to even start up a business here. So Things like that are things we can do immediately. But the other thing that you mentioned, I think, is repairing our reputation. I mean, when you think of like, what is a business-friendly city? Which city do you think of?
Or
Manhattan Beach.
El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Torrance. So we need to repair our reputation with public-private investment, developers, and Brad, you said this, like, stop making that word a,
Taboo.
a trigger word. Yeah, I mean, these are people who want to invest in our community, and that benefits us. So,
when you ask that question, now that you ask that question, a business-friendly city, I think of places like Inglewood and El Segundo. I've worked with the president of their chamber. She's amazing. She lives hella far, but the city is so business-friendly that she's been the president of that chamber forever because the president of the chamber and the city work so well together. As early as when I first moved here, I think it's been about 10 years, Bill Brand and all of his people and their anti-business mindset had such a clash with the Chamber of Commerce. I had never experienced that anywhere. Have there been things that have taken place that are even, mending those fences? Like the tension when it comes to community and business is so thick. It makes it very hard to even perceive it as a business-friendly community. Who would tell their friend that's opening a business, "Oh, open it up in Redondo"?
Yeah, I wasn't here for that, so I can't speak to it. But what I will say is that I am a big believer that we can't do anything on our own, and that city included. So we have organizations. Thank God for our amazing school district. Thank God for Beach Cities Health District with all of the programs they provide. And our chamber, like, these are resources that we can use to prop up not just the city, but everybody. Like, we can all grow together. And so I am a big believer in not burning bridges. I'm a big believer in partnership and collaborate. We don't have to agree on everything, and we're not going to, but we should work together where we can.
Well, I appreciate you saying all that, and I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that we can get leadership to at least understand what needs to happen. I would love to check in with both of you about what's going on in your life outside of this measure. I know, Paige, you have been working on some incredible initiatives for the city. And then Brad, I know you're running, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about your platform. But Ms. Paige, what's going on?
Yes. First, I just want to do a quick shout out and thank you to all the students who applied for a youth commission. We have filled our youth commission. It starts tomorrow, and we are going to have a voice of the young people in our community at our local government. And
congratulations.
Yes. And we are continuing to work on our mobile mental health response. I know I talked about that last time. We've run into some challenges because multiple things. The county is a big organization. We've tried to partner with them about getting a mental health clinician, and it hasn't panned out. We tried to work with a contractor that Hermosa Beach has been using, and they can't hire a clinician. I think they've pivoted mostly to peer support, which is what we kind of already have. We have homeless outreach people, but that's not the intention of this program. The intention is to focus on mental health and substance abuse. So our city attorney's office, who runs our homelessness initiative, we are working to find the funds, which I think we have, to hire our own in-house mental health clinician and build the program from there. So we've ran into some roadblocks, but we are progressing through it. And this, as I mentioned before, this is an extension of our public safety. We're talking about Measure FP, but if we can have a tool for our police and fire to deal with the mental health issues that they encounter on a day-to-day basis for our unhoused and our housed residents, we will be a much better off community. So I continue to work on that as well.
Well, thank you
Best
for
of
that.
luck. Please continue to keep us posted on that.
Yes.
Brad, what's going on with you?
Well, in my spare time, other than work, I am vice president of Keep the Esplanade Beautiful. It's a nonprofit dedicated to the beautification of Esplanade. We have this wonderful resource here called the ocean, and Esplanade is a great way to enjoy it, whether you're walking with your dog, exercising, or just hanging out. So we do monthly sweeps on the first Saturday of every month. So our next sweep is actually this upcoming Saturday. The Rotary of Redondo Beach will be sponsoring it. So you can come out 9 a.m. at Esplanade and Avenue I and meet us. We've got everything you need, and spend 1 hour, get some exercise, get some steps in, and do that. And Keep the Esplanade Beautiful is also doing holding their annual mixer, which is our fundraiser for the year, on October 16th at 5 p.m. in the wine room at HT Grill here in the village. It's free to attend. We ask that you RSVP at keeptheesplanadebeautiful.org. Click the button to let us know you're coming. And there'll be buy your own drinks. I think there's going to be free appetizers, lots of cool things to bid on, raffle, paddleboard, Porsche experience. I'm not quite sure what else. Miriam is part of that, so she might be able to help with more details on that. And as you mentioned, I'm starting to run. Basically, even though it's early, I'm starting to get ready and do what I need to do to run for city council. I want to do it successfully. I want to serve. I want to bring civility back into our government. All politics is local. Our national is totally screwed up, but let's at least be civil. As Paige said, we don't have to agree, but we have to be able to disagree amicably. I know in the old days, the council used to, I think they used to go to like AT Grill, and Steve Aspel used to smoke a cigar, and they would drink, and they would meet with each other after the meetings. It doesn't mean that they always agree, and I'm happy to do that. I would love to bring the financial stability back to Redondo Beach. You guys were talking about it. Our revenues aren't growing to keep pace with inflation, and the only driver of that can do something is the sales tax side of it. We need to become more business friendly. I'm not saying build and develop everything.
Right.
We need to be smart about it and think about it. Mixed use is a great way to do it. We need to meet our RHNA numbers, whether we like it or not. We need to meet them, but we also need to meet them in the north and the south. We should have a north and a south Redondo. We should have one Redondo and figure out how to make it all work. Not just go up there and have a dumping ground and say, well, hey, everybody in power is down here, so let's go put everything somewhere else. I'm happy as a District 1 person to say, look, we got to take some of it.
I love that.
I can keep on going, but
Thank you, Brad. And you guys can go to his website. I was sleuthing on his site. It's pretty interesting. I love seeing, obviously, he loves cars. If you know anything about Brad, you know that. So get to know the people that are running for office. This is not a popularity contest. This is really about what is going to be best for the city and best for your pocketbook, not just who you like, because sometimes the people you like don't make decisions that are good for you. I do have a message from Dan Elder. Thank you for your advocacy around this important public safety initiative and for providing more information on Measure FP and why it's badly needed. That is always something we can count on Paige to do, is keep us informed and keep us activated so that we are engaged and not so feeling like we're left behind. Maggie also sent in a message. Thank you all for your positive efforts and intelligent and respectful conversation. We have to continue to talk about the issues. And like Brad said, being able to do it with civility, even if we don't agree, is great. I love hearing all of the different perspectives, the options. What if we do? What if we don't? Those are the types of conversations we need to engage in. And I do appreciate you guys for bringing that to us today. Miss Miriam, is there anything before we get out of here?
So like Brad was saying, we do have our Keep the Esplanade Beautiful Community Mixer October 16. In addition to the Porsche experience and paddleboard, we also have a beach cruiser that we're going to be raffling off. There's so many things to bid on, guys. It's going to be really fun. I personally will be bidding on many things. I get lots of cool stuff there. And don't forget, it is a 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization. So everything that you donate and things of that nature is tax deductible. We hope you can come and support the Esplanade and all of our efforts.
Well, before we get out of here, let's just, Miriam and I want you to know that we missed Paul. He wasn't able to be with us today, but he's always here in spirit because he's so insightful and also loves Redondo. But he'll be back next week.
Yes, we do miss Paul. Paul is on.
Where's he on vacation, dude? This guy be on boats and ships and islands and other countries.
I want his life. The man has the coolest life, but you know how it is, Tanya. We've got kids. We got to stay local. We got to take them to places they want to go.
It's not about us. But one day. But one day, I think my calendar opens up in 2032, so maybe we can all get together around then.
I'm 2033.
Okay.
After they go to college and after they graduate, but before they have their family. That's your little window.
The window?
Like 5 years.
Oh my God. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And please continue to keep us posted on what we can do to support your efforts to get this passed and to keep the community informed.
Yeah, I would just say, everyone, please vote. I'd love for you to vote yes on Measure FP, but please vote regardless. And if you want to show your support and host a yard sign, let me know. You can email me at page4d3@gmail.com. I will happily deliver you a yard sign. And that's all I got.
Let me have 2. I think me and my neighbors need one.
Awesome. Will do.
All right. You guys take it easy.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What did you think about today's episode? And share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you and we'll see you soon.